Friends, I'd love to read you another story. Samuel Eaton's Day. This is Pastor Kim, and I'm really enjoying reading these stories to you. Samuel Eaton's Day, A Day in the Life of a Pilgrim Boy. Again, by Kate Waters and photographed by Russ Kendall. This is a day in the life of a young boy in Plymouth Plantation. He's pretending to be a day in the life of 1626. Can you imagine all that time ago? And he is a historical interpreter being photographed, and it's just lovely. So let me read you about Samuel Eaton's Day. Good day to you. I am Samuel Eaton. My family sailed from England to this new world 7 years ago on the ship Mayflower. I was a mere suckling child then, and I don't remember the voyage of our first winter here. Nearly half of the people died. My mother was one. Father and Mam are married now, and I have a wee sister called Rachel. Today is a day I have been longing for. I am to help with the rye harvest for the first time. It's my beginning to be a man. If I can show Father that I am up to the task, perhaps he will let me help with all the harvest. This is our village, Plymouth Plantation. The land was wild when we first came ashore. My father's talents as a carpenter have been much in demand in this new land. He has aided in the building of all that you see. I am up at first light. I am so eager I have hardly slept. I get out of bed and get dressed. First my stockings, then my garters that I tie on, then my breeches, then my doublet, then my shoes, and then Mam has to help me tie my points. Go quickly now, Samuel, she says. Thou must tend to thy labours before thou goest to the fields, and thou mustn't keep thy father waiting this morn, lest he leave thee behind. First I go to the spring to fetch water, and my friend Sarah Morton is out early as well. I stop for a moment, though I shouldn't. I tell her that I am glad to be aiding with the harvest, and I'm afeard of being gammy at the work. She laughs and she says, Thou art a grown boy in breeches now, Samuel, not a baby in long clothes. Thou art strong enough for the labour. Her words send me on my way. Now that I am almost grown, I can help catch game for the table. I run into the woods to check my snare. Father has finally let me set my own this season. It is empty this morn, but it is well placed and may soon give us a fat coney for a pottage. I straighten the loop to set the snare again. On the way back, I gather firewood. I need to get Mam much to keep the fire while Father and I are on the rye ground. She needs a lot of it. In other seasons, Mam would go with Father to reap, but she is not feeling well. Methinks I will have a new brother or sister. I know that Mam will miss my help, but I'd be as lief to try not to do a man's work this day. Before breakfast, I brush my clothes and wash my hands and face. Father says a blessing before we eat. I serve Mam and Father the samp. Baby Rachel is beginning to eat upgrown food. Some goes in, but she loses somewhat by the way. After breakfast, it's time to go. It seems to take Father a long time to be ready. 'Tis no time to dally, lest a summer storm come over. Our stores are low now, and all depends on us getting the harvest in. We will have naught to eat this winter if we are slack and let the birds or the rain spoil the grain. Finally, we set out. Our neighbor, Robert Bartlett, is to help us with the harvest. He is not wed yet and has but 1 acre of his own. Father will share our grain in return for his labor. As we pass through the village gate, Father tells me about his first rye harvest. Our ground seems so vast. Since first planting, my friends and I have come out here to scare the birds and connies away from the new plants. Most of our ground is planted with Indian corn and some with barley, but that will not be ready for reaping until later. But the rye is ready now. Robert Bartlett says it will take but a few days to harvest the rye. I'm not grown enough to wield the sickle. It can cut a man's arm, so I stay a distance behind. Father and Robert Bartlett reap the rye with the sickle and lay it behind. It is my task to gather up the rye and bind it. Robert Bartlett shows me how to bind. At first I am gammy and fall behind. To watch is easy, to do is hard. The straw is coarse and makes my hands smart and my skin itch. And if truth be told, and the sun burns my neck, but I'll say nary a word, 'tis but folly to spend time in bootless complaints. Father and Robert Bartlett sing while they cut. It was the frog in the well, humble dum, and the merry mouse in the mill, tweedledee, twee, twee. 'Tis a song with many verses, and helps pass the time. I try to join in the song, but I am truly thinking of my empty stomach and my sore hands. Perhaps I was foolish to think I could do a man's work. When the sun is high, I finally see Mam and Rachel coming with dinner. Of a sudden, I feel small and 'tis a struggle not to weep. I mustn't let Father see. We sit under a shady tree and have bread and cheese and cold water from the spring. My legs and back ache. I am surely grateful to rest. When Mam notices my blisters, she takes me to the brook to cool my hands. They will harden thy hands like a man's hands soon, she says. Mam is quiet for a time. Then she says, Art thou faring well, Samuel? Be thou too done to remain? I tell her that I must remain, that I want to help bring in the rye, that I truly am done, I really truly am, but I'm grateful that Mam does not fret overly. I think she will not tell Father how much I smart. I lay down to rest by the brook. 'Tis a place I could stay till morning. All of a sudden, Father is calling. He shows me how to hone the sickle. Then it is time to go back to the rye. We reap and we bind till the sun is setting. I have straw in my breeches and down my neck, and I itch all over. My way with the rye seems harder now, not easier, but I do not fall so far behind. At last the sun is setting. On the way home, Robert Bartlett and I stop to gather mussels for the evening meal. They are slippery and cling to the rocks, and the salt water stings my hands. Penishumok and Amapu are gathering as well. We say good evening and turn towards home. I lag behind. Then Robert Bartlett calls to me. He tells me I worked better today than ever he did at my age. He says he hopes someday to have a son as strong as I. I am truly pleased, and I stand a bit taller now. It's nearly dark when we get home, and though I'm so more weary than I remember, I blow bubbles with Rachel and set her to sleep. She will always want to get in Mom's way. Mam chops the parsley to flavor the mussels. We eat our fill of mussels and curds, and Mam asks me about the rest of the day. There'll be no schooling for me tonight because Father has the watch. He puts on his armor, his bandolier, and powder flask. I hold his musket. All of a sudden, father asks for a word with me. At the gate I am quiet, though I long to ask how I fared. We smell the air for rain and listen for the cries of wolves who want our cattle. Thou wert a fine help this day, son. Dost think thou canst keep at the harvest with the upgrown people? Father asks. Oh, surely, I say, and all of a sudden the blisters and the aches aren't important anymore. I watch as father walks up the hill to the fort and wonder at his strength. My legs will barely take me to the house. I undress and fall into bed. Rachel wakes up and wants to play. I quiet her with one of the songs we sang today. It was in the well, the frog in the well, humble dum, and the merry mouse in the mill, tweedle, tweedle, twine, oh. Though my hands tingle and my legs are stiff, 'tis a man's hurts I'm feeling. I pray that I will be able to keep up to father's faith in me, that the rains won't come before the harvest is done, that my snare will catch a fat coonie for mam, and that God will protect us. Fare thee well with thy labours, and God keep thee. Samuel Eaton's Day, a day in the life of a Pilgrim boy.